Here we go again. We have another tragic yet avoidable mass shooting, this time in one of the safest states in America, which is Maine, by a guy with a record of being crazy, previously institutionalized for making threats and hearing voices, who selected a soft target to inflict maximum casualties. This is the fault of the shooter and those who ignored every warning sign, most of which should have prohibited him from owning a firearm in the first place. Now, the governor of Maine, I think she actually did a really nice job today. She's a Democrat, and she offered condolences and even grief counseling for the people who elected her of her state. Not one cheap political talking point on gun control or anything else. Joe Biden, on the other hand, right out of the gate had this to say, releasing a statement saying, quote, "Today, in the wake of yet another tragedy, I urge Republican lawmakers in Congress to fulfill their duty to protect the American people. Work with us to pass a bill banning assault weapons and high-capacity magazines, to enact universal background checks, to require safe storage of guns, and to end immunity from liability for gun manufacturers. This is the very least we owe every American who will now bear the scars, physical and mental, of the latest attack." I find it highly ironic and honestly stupid that all these people calling for our guns to be taken are protected by a ton of guns. But as Obama's chief of staff, Rahm Emanuel, once said, "You never let a serious crisis go to waste." Joe Biden didn't waste a minute. First, Biden knows damn well that Republicans are never going to pass this because Republicans want the ability to shoot back before we become victims. Democrats don't understand that. We also embrace this little thing called the Constitution, Second Amendment, Biden also wants to hold gun manufacturers responsible for how these tools are used after they're sold. This is obviously a blatant effort to bankrupt the gun industry, but also completely ridiculous. Just throwing some numbers out there. There's an estimated 400 million guns in America. In 2022, they were tragically responsible for taking just 20,000 lives in homicides, not including suicide. There's less than 300 million cars in America, yet they killed 43,000 in the same time frame. That's more than double. You don't see anyone trying to hold the car manufacturers responsible for those deaths, do you? Heart disease, mostly linked to poor diets, people's choices. It remains the #1 killer in America, taking over 700,000 lives in the same time frame, yet we don't blame spoons. You want to fix this problem? Let's have an honest conversation about it. Unfortunately, the left's argument is always, well, if you don't support my type of gun control, then you're for gun violence. This is not only stupid, it doesn't solve the problem. Nobody is for gun violence except for the criminals. There's always a rush in the immediate aftermath of these shootings to do something. It's never thought out. It's like shopping while hungry. It almost never does anything that would have stopped the tragedy in the first place. Case in point, the 1160 bill that my home state of Connecticut passed in the wake of Sandy Hook, that terrible shooting at the elementary school, did not have a single provision in that bill that would have stopped the shooting or stopped the shooter from obtaining the weapons he used in the shooting. Democrats did, in fact, turn an estimated 68% of law-abiding gun owners in that state into felons overnight if we didn't either get rid of certain guns or magazines or obey Stalinistic regulation or registration requirements. None of these are solutions. In fact, we already have a ton of laws on the books, many of which I don't even believe infringe on the Second Amendment, that might actually have stopped some of these shootings. But they're not enforced, and that's the problem. Nearly all of these mass shooters have pre-known behavioral, mental, or legal red flags that somehow go completely unaddressed. The Uvalde shooter, who was nicknamed the school shooter by online friends a year before he opened fire. He had also started wearing all black and making over-the-top threats towards women. The El Paso shooter was also mentally ill, had a schizoaffective disorder, which is a combination of schizophrenic symptoms and hallucinations and delusions. Also had mood disorder symptoms like depression and mania, which by law should prohibit him from owning a firearm. The Parkland shooter, his defense claimed his birth mother's abuse of drugs and alcohol during her pregnancy left him with fetal alcohol spectrum disorder and antisocial personality disorder. All red flags. Audrey Hale, the Nashville shooter, was under the care of an emotional disorder group. His own parents even said they felt he should not own weapons. Fort Hood shooter was a mentally ill Iraq vet with a history of depression, anxiety, and other psychiatric disorders. He was currently being evaluated for serious post-traumatic stress disorder just before the shooting. The Sandy Hook shooter, this is the same glaring examples every single time. This was from Yale. Quote, medical experts at Yale University had called for drastic measures to help Adam Lanza in the years before he shot and killed 26 people at Sandy Hook Elementary School. But those calls went largely unheeded by his mother, who Lanza ended up shooting and killing. The Virginia Tech shooter suffered from depression and anxiety and was counseled by 3 separate therapists before committing the deadliest on-campus shooting in the history of the U.S. He denied major mental health issues, but was ruled mentally ill by a court and went to a psych ward. In December 2005, more than a year before the mass shooting, a district court in Virginia determined that he presented a, quote, imminent danger to himself and others. What'd they do with that information? Nothing. They let him walk. And sure enough, this trend unfortunately continues with the suspect in Maine. And I do have some breaking news actually right now. The FBI is outside of Robert Card's last known home in Bowdoin, Maine. We cannot confirm if he is at the residence, but loud bangs are reportedly being heard from outside the home, and we're going to keep a close eye on this as it develops. But now the Army, though, has confirmed that Card is a reservist and has been since December of 2002. His current rank is Sergeant First Class, and recently, as this summer, he was flagged for erratic behavior. He recently dealt with mental health issues, including hearing voices and threatening to shoot up at the National Guard base where he was stationed in Maine. That should have been my first cue to have his firearm access revoked. It's a threat, just like it would be in any restraining order based on anything similar for anyone, even for lesser charges than that. He also reportedly admitted to mental health facility. He was remanded to it just months ago, but was released after 2 weeks. Another disqualifier for owning a firearm. There's actually a question on your background check paperwork asking if you've ever been institutionalized. Nearby residents reportedly knew to stay away from Card. Even his family knew something was off. His sister-in-law claiming in the past year Card had an acute episode of mental health. She also noted that her brother-in-law insisted on his family that he can hear people bashing him, including at Just-in-Time Recreation Bowling Alley and the nearby Bar and Grill. Both of these locations became the sites of those deadly shootings yesterday. So the question is, what laws can you pass to make criminals abide by laws? The answer is clearly none. But maybe if the FBI would stop spying on Catholics or concerned parents at PTA meetings, maybe if they abided by the laws they are tasked with enforcing, maybe then we could actually stop a shooter. That's where the conversation needs to start. Banning AR-15s and 30-round magazines won't stop this. Look at all the footage, all the cops all around. They're all carrying the same weapon that the left is trying to ban. Why? So they can shoot back with the same firepower as the criminal. We citizens, that's what the point of the Second Amendment is, deserve nothing less. And I warned you yesterday, 2 hours before this happened. We're in for a rude awakening here. And no one is coming to save you, by the way. I don't know if I have to tell you this. Most of you guys probably understand that. But there simply aren't enough resources in America. Something is imminent. And I'm not trying to scare you. I don't know what it is, but something's going to break sooner or later. And folks, I'm saying this because I want you to be ready. What's your plan? I said it yesterday. I want my right to defend myself because when seconds count, the cops are minutes away. If you believe in gun control, don't call somebody with a gun when you're in trouble. But you cannot disarm your way to safety. And if someone is willing to break murder laws, why would they listen to any firearm laws?